Hi guys, we're going to do section 3.1 where we're going to be writing equations. This warm-up is actually a review of something we didn't do, but it's writing expressions, and then today we're going to be writing equations. So the difference between an expression and an equation is that an expression does not have an equal sign and an equation does. So this says to write an expression, which means it's not going to have an equal sign. It's just going to be one simple statement. So it says 5 greater than half of a number. So we're going to read the words and we're going to write the expression. 5 greater than is similar to saying 5 more than. So if you're thinking about 5 more than something else, that means you're going to be adding 5. Okay? We're not sure to what yet because it just says 5 more than or 5 greater than, so that's all we got so far is adding 5. We got to figure out what we're adding 5 to. It says 5 more than half of a number. So you're cutting a number in half. You don't know what the number is because it just says a number. So in algebra, when we don't know, we're going to use a variable. So I can say half of a number, so half of x. Of, remember, means to multiply, if you didn't know that already. So half of means you're going to multiply a number by 1/2. Since we don't know the number, we just used x. And that's it. You don't have to solve anything. You're just writing the equation. All right, number 2 says the sum of 3 times a and the square of b. Sum is just a fancy word of saying add. Fancy way to say add. So you're adding 2 things together, and we just have to keep reading to figure out what we're adding together. You're adding 3 times a. So the way we would write 3 times a is just 3a. Remember, if there's just a number and a variable, it's multiplication. You don't need anything in between. You just put the 3 and the a next to each other. So we're adding 3a to the square of b. Well, that's b squared, which is just b to the second power. And then you're done. Okay? All right. We are writing equations, so we're something extremely similar. It's just going to be a little longer because we're going to have 2 sides of the equal sign instead of just an expression today. All right. These are words you need to know, so you need to write them down. Sum, we just said, means to add. Difference is the fancy word for subtract. Product is multiplication, and usually we use dots for multiplication, not x's anymore. And quotient is the fancy word for divide. Okay? So if it says the sum of, or the difference of, or the product of, or the quotient of, that means you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing depending on what word they are using. Okay? So this says to write an equation given the verbal expression, which means they give the words, we write the equation. So 5 times the number a. Again, they gave the variable they wanted us to use. We didn't get to pick it. But 5 times the number a is just 5a is equal to, so that's easy, 3 times the sum of b and c. There's a lot going on there. 3 times, so we're multiplying something by 3. It says we're multiplying the sum. If you remember, sum is our fancy word for add, so we're adding 2 things together. And then it tells you what you're adding together, b and c. Okay? We're almost done, but not quite. We were asked to multiply 3 times the sum. Right now, the 3 is only being multiplied by the b. I don't want it just multiplied by the b. I need it multiplied by the b and the c together. So in order to do that, I need to put the b plus c in parentheses. So if you ever have something times the sum or something times the difference, okay, if you are multiplying a grouping of addition or a grouping of subtraction, then you need to put those parentheses around the addition or subtraction to make sure that that 3 would get multiplied by both pieces, not just one. Okay, so number 2 says 9 times y subtracted from 95 is 37. So 9 times y, hopefully we know, is just 9y. Subtracted from 95 is 37. be careful here because a lot of people just read subtracted and 95 and they just write minus 95 equals 37. That's not right. Don't write that down. This says subtracted from, meaning you had 95 to begin with and you're taking something away from 95. So you have to put that 95 first because the 9y is being taken away from the 95. And then is means equals 37. Okay? So just because it's written in words in a specific order doesn't mean that that's actually how the equation goes. You just have to be careful and make sure that it makes sense to what was written. All right, this says we can use it for formulas. So this says the perimeter of a rectangle equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Okay? The only thing with formulas is that the variables are standing for something specific. It's not just an arbitrary number. We're not just saying a number. So we can't just pick any letter we want. We're going to use what are called descriptive variables. So descriptive meaning it describes something, and letters, so variables that describe what you're talking about. So if we're talking about the perimeter of a rectangle, I'm going to use P for perimeter because that makes sense. Okay, I'm talking specifically about the perimeter, so I'm going to use P. 2 times the length, I'm going to use an L for length so that I know that that's what it is. Typically in math, if you have to use the letter L, you want to write a cursive L with a loop because just a regular L, lowercase l, looks like a 1. And 2 times the width, so we'll use W for the width. Okay? So once you know that you're going to use those descriptive variables because we're talking about specific pieces in a formula, then you can write your equation. So the perimeter of a rectangle equals, so the perimeter equals, P equals 2 times the length. So 2 times the length would just be 2L. And then plus is very straightforward. 2 times the width, which would just be 2W. And all we're doing here is writing the equation so we can just be done. Okay, but you just need to use those descriptive variables if it's a formula where the variables are standing for something very specific, not just a random number. All right, going backwards means you can write words given the equation. My only request to you is that you write words that actually have some sort of algebraic value to them. Meaning, don't just read me the equation and write it down. So don't just write 3m plus 5 equals 14. Try to use the word sum, difference, product, increased, decreased, more than, less than. Something that would help us identify this in a more sophisticated way. So this says 3m plus 5 equals 14. So I'm going to verbally tell you some things that you can write down. You can pick something and write it down. Okay? If you wanted to use the word sum because there's an addition, okay, you can say the sum of 3m and 5 equals 14. That's very straightforward. The sum of 3m and 5 equals 14. If you wanted to use the word product because 3 and m are being multiplied, you can say the product of 3 and m added to 5 is 14. You could say the product of 3 and m increased by 5 is 14. You could say 5 more than 3m is 14. All of these are fine, and they're not just strictly reading straight across 3m plus 5 equals 14. Okay, they all have a little bit more to them. So you need to write something, one of those. You need to write them down on your notes. Same thing with number 5. There's addition, so you can use the word sum. So if you wanted to, you could say the sum of W and V is y squared. Okay, that's not difficult, but it did use a more sophisticated word other than plus. Okay, you could say W increased by V is y squared. Okay, those are both great options. It doesn't matter which one. You need to have something written for both 4 and 5, even though I didn't physically write something down for 4. Okay, Your homework is the 3-1 worksheet, so you're just going to go there, going to complete that and turn that in. And if you need anything, let me know.